There have been plenty of historic events at the home of the U.S. president, but nothing like this. Inside the White House, President Donald Trump and his wife Melania spent the day in self-isolation, both of them infected with the virus that has killed more than 1 million people around the world. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Just 32 days before the presidential election, and there is anxiety and uncertainty. Late today, the president was seen for the first time since his diagnosis, giving a thumbs up and boarding Marine One, which took him to Walter Reed Medical Center in Maryland. The White House says it's out of an abundance of caution. Before he left, Trump recorded a short message.
I think I'm doing very well, but we're going to make sure that things work out. The First Lady is doing very well.
The White House says his symptoms are mild, but he does have a fever. He is 74, overweight, and that puts him at higher risk. He announced his positive test in a tweet hours after the news broke that one of his trusted advisors and longtime senior aides, Hope Hicks, developed symptoms and tested positive on Thursday morning. Both she and Trump were in close contact with many people this week, rarely wearing a mask, and it's having a cascading effect not just on his campaign, but on senior levels of government. The Vice President, Mike Pence, and his wife said they tested negative today. So has House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and a whole lot of other senior people, including the Attorney General and the Secretary of State. The chair of the Republican National Committee is positive, though, and many others are still waiting for test results. Trump was on stage with his rival Joe Biden on Tuesday at the debate, though they stayed apart and did not shake hands. Biden said today he's taken 2 tests and he is negative, so is his wife. He continued his campaign today, sending his best wishes to the president and first lady and making a plea for everyone to wear a mask in public.
We can save more than 100,000 American lives in the next 100 days alone if everyone wore a mask in public.
Jackson Prosco joins me from Washington. Jackson, Trump going from home to the hospital the day after he's diagnosed suggests his symptoms are more than just mild. What can you tell us?
It's not just that, Donna. It's the fact that the president, according to White House doctors, was given an experimental antibody therapy today, a high dose of that experimental therapy based on compassionate grounds, which means it was essentially released to somebody who would not typically have access to a non-approved medication. All of this suggests things may be more serious than the White House is letting on. There's a tremendous amount of concern tonight, but the fact that the president walked to that helicopter to be airlifted to a Walter Reed Medical Center does suggest, at least for now, he's doing okay. President Donald Trump may have already been feeling unwell as he returned from a private fundraiser Thursday night. Hours later, he revealed his positive diagnosis in a tweet. Tonight, the First Lady and I tested positive for COVID-19, he wrote. We will begin our quarantine and recovery process immediately. We will get through this together.
They remain in good spirits. The president does have mild symptoms.
Trump's chief of staff appeared without a mask to warn of more cases likely to come.
I fully expect that as this virus continues to go on, other people in the White House will certainly have a positive test result.
Soon after, the president missed a planned phone call with governors about the COVID-19 response. Trump and the First Family suspended all future in-person campaigning. Vice President Mike Pence, who would have to assume the duties of the president should Trump's condition worsen, will still travel to events.
Often those who go on to develop severe disease, the critical period is around 10, 12 days since symptom onset. And so that's the period, we are all hoping will pass uneventfully.
The White House says it learned Trump's aide Hope Hicks was positive just as the president departed for a private fundraiser Thursday night. But they let Trump continue on to the event where he may have unknowingly exposed high-paying donors.
It was deemed safe for the president to go. He socially distanced. It was an outdoor event, and it was deemed safe by White House operations for him to attend that event.
Given the window for infection, Trump may have been contagious during Tuesday's presidential debate.
Masks make a big difference.
Where Trump's family defied mask requirements and sat barefaced in the crowd as the president mocked his rival Joe Biden over the issue of face masks.
Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen.
Biden has since tested negative. But just like Trump, a cluster of people who were at a White House event last Saturday for the new Supreme Court nominee have now tested positive, including the president of the University of Notre Dame and Utah Republican Senator Mike Lee, seen here hugging other maskless attendees in the Rose Garden.
Jackson, Trump's justification for rarely wearing a mask was that most people who come into close contact with him are tested first, and we know they use rapid tests at the White House. What are experts saying about that strategy tonight?
You know, the medical experts I spoke with today say it's great that somebody like Trump, who comes into contact with a lot of people, is tested frequently, but that's just one part of the strategy. They say he still needs to adopt things like mask wearing and social distancing and proper ventilation in the rooms that he's in. Really, they say that the testing that he's been undergoing may have actually created a false sense of security here. And anecdotally, you certainly hear that from people who work in and around the White House, that mask wearing just has not been commonplace inside that bubble, that there's been a lot of confidence that testing alone would keep the virus at bay.
Okay, Jackson Prosco in Washington, thanks. Well, there is a protocol in place if the U.S. president becomes incapacitated and can't carry out his duties. The U.S. Constitution in the 25th Amendment makes clear the vice president assumes the powers and duties if the president is unable to do so because of death, resignation, or inability. Section 3 allows the president to transfer power voluntarily to the vice president, even for a few hours, if that's necessary. And Section 4 addresses a more complex issue. When a president is incapable or unwilling to declare his incapacity, then the vice president and a majority of cabinet would declare the president unable to carry out his duties, and power would immediately transfer to the vice president. And if both the president and the vice president are incapacitated, then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is next in line.